All right. Welcome everybody to another episode.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday again.
It's happening so fast. Happy Memorial Day weekend.
Happy Memorial Day weekend. So 1.02 billion with a B. That's a historic number for here in South Carolina. That is the fiscal year 2027 budget number. 1.02 billion.
Budget number 4.
Yes.
Horry County, South Carolina.
Yes.
It's actually the first time ever that Horry County, South Carolina has approved a budget over $1 billion.
Pretty crazy.
That's crazy. That's like a huge situation.
Yes.
So how are they going to pay for this? That's what we want to know.
That is the question. So hang with us tonight. We're going to talk about all of these and more. We're going to talk about, how this affects you and your property, what you might see that might change. And if you are buying a home in Myrtle Beach, if you are selling a home in Myrtle Beach, if you are investing in a home in Myrtle Beach, and if you're building a home in Myrtle Beach, then we are the place to be. We can help you. But what we want to talk about is everything else that affects if you do one of those things.
Yeah, all of those segments could potentially be affected by this new budget. So we're going to go through and see how that could possibly affect the different segments of the real estate market.
Yes, yes. And they started actually at 1.04 billion. That number was in an earlier draft that some of you may have heard of. And if you haven't seen it, then this is news to you. 1.04 billion. And that still sets a record, though, once they adjusted it to 1.02 billion. So,
and it's like over 150 million more than this year budget.
Yeah.
So
just over 146.
Would you say that when they were creating this budget, Horry County was preparing for growth, or are they catching up to the growth? That's the real question.
That's a really great question. And I think it's a little bit of both. I would say, though, it's a lot of preparing. I think it's a lot of preparing. The catch-up is there, too. But I think most of it is preparation.
And then the question is, what are they spending it on? Vacation getaways for the council members, or or something actually that'll affect the lives?
If that's what it is, I'm joining the council.
Oh, is that why you said you're running next year? Yeah. Or how is this going to
Will you all vote for me?
Oh my goodness. How is this going to affect us as homeowners, residents, or even if you have a secondary home or investment property here? Yeah.
And this affects you because it affects your wallet. It affects your next move. And this is the area that you're betting on, like all of us. And so I think that we have to be good stewards for the community, for ourselves, for each other. And I think that, now with the fact that we have social media and we have the ability to do something like this, and we can share with people and say, hey, here's what's taking place. Here's what's going on. We can all talk about it, have an open discussion.
So stay tuned, because we're going to go through all of the different things. Our taxes going up, is how are they going to come up with this money? That's the big thing. And then how is it going to affect you? So, should we get started?
Yeah, let's get started. Let's talk about some of this.
Let's just first, I'm
getting excited about numbers, folks.
that never happens. So let's answer the first question that I'm sure most people are wanting to know. If they increased the budget by that much, does that mean our taxes are going to go up? Our property taxes are going to go up next year to cover the cost of this? Beats me. Probably. They say that. Probably. No, they say that the county millage rate of 52.1 mills, and we do have a video on our channel that explains how they calculate taxes in South Carolina and in Horry County, because it's very different than a lot of other parts of the country. And some people can find it very confusing. So make sure to watch that. We do break it down for you, and that'll make more sense. But the millage rate for the county is staying the same. That's what they are telling us. Of course, they could always change that.
52.1, right?
Mills.
So it remains.
That does not take into account. So we're talking about the county. So if you live in the county, that's what your millage rate is. If you live within a city district, Myrtle Beach, North Myrtle Beach, Little River, then you're paying that city's millage rate plus the county's millage rate. So this is not, we're not kind of talking about those city limits. We're only talking about the county, and that's who approved this budget.
That's right. And some other numbers to kind of keep in mind. Like we said, it's about 146 million, I think, over the last year. And there's capital projects in here, which we'll talk about. We'll get into that. And I think 155 million totally. Oh, sorry, I got to stay on track. Yeah. All right. Sorry, we'll stick to. We'll go ahead and talk about what you have there.
No, I'm just so we're talking about property taxes, right? So here's the thing. We talked about the millage rate. Properties are reassessed. So every 5 years in our area, the county does an area-wide property value reassessment, and then they change your tax bill based on what they say your new property value is. Of course, it can always go down. It did go down like during the Great Recession, but really since then, it goes up every time they do it. The last one that we had was 2024, and then those bills came out in 2025. We were hit on all of our properties. But the good news is, if you've owned the property and nothing has changed, you haven't changed it into a different name, sold it, anything like that, then they are only allowed to raise your tax rate by 15% from the previous year. So even if they say, hey, your property value jumped 200,000, they can't actually tax you the increase of 200,000 value right away. They have to wait, and only capped at 15% increase. So if you stay in your home, you're pretty much at least stabilized into the purchase price. Now, as soon as you buy a new home here, you're automatically taxed at the higher rate, whatever your home appraises for per the county. Usually it's your sales price, but sometimes they could go out and say it's worth more, I suppose. And so you're automatically there. It doesn't matter if the last person, we've sold some properties where the people bought it for 200,000 and sell it for 550, and they're paying like $70 a year on taxes, and then now the new owner is paying thousands.
But it matters, because this is, people wonder this, so this should answer some questions for all of you out there. By the way, if you own, what are your questions? If you didn't know about this, what are your questions about the new budget that's being passed? Is there anything that you think should be in the budget that isn't? And we'll talk about some more that is in the budget here tonight. And do you have questions about your property, whether you own property or if you want to buy a home? So just want people to let us know. But I think this is really important. So what fees, that leads me to, then my question is, okay, taxes, no.
Yeah, taxes are supposedly not going up. So how are they going to get the money?
That's right. That's right.
So they could charge, I guess, like they've already done penny taxes when you go out and you buy things to cover some of the road projects. So they could do another penny tax on top of the other penny tax, maybe. But the point is that we are seeing so much growth in our area that they need more EMS, emergency services. They need more roads. They have other planning things that they need,
those
services
are major
that they need to add. And we'll talk about what they're kind of putting this money towards. But it's essentially is to make life better for people living in Horry County, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
That's why they're spending the money. Yes.
Those are the major drivers for growth, public safety, infrastructure, those types of things. Those are the major drivers for the big growth ticket items.
Yeah. And we'll talk about this in a few minutes, but I just want to point out it's something we've continually in the last 6 months a year been getting from the Home Builders Association here in town, because the county has been proposing to dramatically increase the impact fees that you pay. And so of course the Home Builders Association that protects builders and home buyers of new construction, they don't want this change. And so we'll talk about that a little more, but this is another way that the county gets their money. And so they're going to get it from you one way or another. So it just depends on who's going to be impacted by where they choose to get this extra money from.
Yeah. There has to be things that take place in every area that you live.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to protect and do the things you need to do to have an area that people want to be. And that's just the bottom line. And so they're trying to do the best they can.
You know, you talk about that, and I was thinking about an example with the oceanfront condos. But the question is, do you want to just keep the budget low, don't really make any improvements just because you want to keep everything cheap and everything consistent?
Yeah.
This is what we saw with a ton of the oceanfront condo buildings.
Yep.
The HOAs wanted to keep the HOA fees low, and they were literally only spending the money on stuff that had to be done. They weren't being thinking ahead into the future and saying, we will need to make these repairs, we will need to make these improvements. They just felt like they would cover that down the road when it was needed. And that's why a lot of them got into big trouble and are charging huge assessments the last few years, because it's all finally catching up to them. So if you're not being preemptive and making this kind of progress like Horry County is planning to do, then all of a sudden you find yourself in a place where you're like, oh my gosh, we are way behind, and now we have to do something drastic to catch up.
It hits you all at once.
Yeah.
And I think that anyone who's watching this is probably going to fall into one to two camps. And we've talked about this before, but you're even a proponent of the growth and you're like, great, which is when you spend the money for what's coming. Or you're someone who says, I don't want to grow, and they want what you're talking about, which is spend money on nothing and then they suffer in the future. That's really what it comes down to.
And a lot of people, even when, I'm just using it as a real world example because it's somebody using a budget the wrong way. Even when the new people come in and they see that the money has just not been spent correctly, they needed to raise the dues like 10 years ago. You still have that large group of homeowners that complain and don't understand why the dues need to be raised, that things need to be repaired, prices change over time. You know, more people buy in the building, more people are renovating in the building. So it's the same kind of thing. But like you said, would you rather live in an area that does have growth and the county's continually improving, or would you rather live somewhere that is quiet, maybe not a lot of people want to move there and there's not much change happening?
Yeah. And we're just trying to stay up on top of this for all of you so that you can get the accurate news, the accurate info.
Yeah, and see how it's going to affect you so you can prepare.
Because it's important. So, and these are the things that, and this, I don't want to, you know, pat ourselves in the back too much, but look, there's a lot of people that don't do the extra work that we do. We don't have to sit here and do these every week. We do them because we like doing it and we want to be a resource for all of you. So if you have questions about anything in the area at all, we're here to help you. So even if you call up and you just have a question about something, we'll be glad to help you and answer it. But we do this so that we are well-versed in everything that's going on. We try our best to stay ahead of what you're going to have to deal with and anything you need to know. That's why we do this.
Yeah, and I think we know, because we moved in from other parts of the country as well, that things are a lot different here that people might not know about. So we try to help educate on what to expect when you move, build, live here, or have a second home, vacation property, investment property.
$1 billion. Let's go.
So essentially, we've talked about there's not supposed to be any kind of property tax increase overall. They're going to have to get it somewhere, mostly from fees of some sort, either a penny tax or the impact fees or somehow, and that will depend on who is exactly affected by this. And we don't know yet how they're going to set up the fee structure, but the money has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
You would think that some of the money would come from new homeowners moving to the area paying taxes, but I'm sure that can't cover the whole amount.
No, it's going to come from many different places, I think. I don't think it's going to be one. It'll be a couple different things. It's kind of like all the taxes in America, right? Yeah. You've got city tax, you've got property taxes, you've got retirement tax, you've got estate tax, you've got income tax, payroll tax. Yeah. I mean, holy camole.
I mean, I feel like taxed out just from what you were saying just there.
And I didn't even get to them all.
I know.
I get frustrated when I just start talking about all the taxes. We're not going to go down that road. But
didn't we start America
anyway,
to like not have all these taxes?
yeah, I mean,
don't
we
know,
could go
whatever.
into like when we had taxes, why we had them, because they weren't supposed to still be around. But anyway,
So, but
all right.
for a homeowner here, essentially, your property taxes should stay stable. That's a good thing. But if you're looking to buy somewhere or move somewhere within town, then you do need to ask questions about, is it a special district? Like sometimes they will place over these special districts that have an extra tax. And there's one like in Myrtle Beach by the ocean where they charge 1% more. So there is those little overlays that have a little more taxes. There's within the city districts outside of the city limits. So that is a difference in taxes as well. And then, if you're building a home and you do have raised impact fees, that's something to think about. You might want to buy a resale. The builders, I'm sure, will be passing that along in some way.
Sure.
So especially now in today's economy when things are kind of tight anyway for everybody and prices are going up on all the materials and interest rates are up so buyers can only afford so much. The builders, amount of money that they can cover is a little less. So that's when it really affects builders. If everything's going great like 2022,
That's right.
then it wouldn't be as big of an effect, I think, as when we're in a little bit of a down economy.
And we've had the conversation here many times. I mean, you have to stay involved. If you live here and you're seeing this tonight and you have to stay involved, because I need a lot of people I come across are like, I don't get involved in politics. And I'm like, it's not politics. It is, but it's not. It's your community. And so you have a say. But if you don't say anything, you can't complain. So they're going to have to make decisions. Growth leads to increased costs. It's just what it is. And so that will affect all of us. And so you have to be able to speak up. And
the impact fee, they were supposed to have a public hearing about it in May, and it actually just got pushed to July. So if you are interested in finding out more about that, you can attend the public hearing in July and give your input or just learn more about it and possible impacts to you. But essentially right now they have a flat fee of $1,236 for your impact fee. But what they're proposing is a graduated dollar amount depending on the size of the home. So a 1,000 square foot home pays X amount and a 3,000 square foot home pays X amount. And those fees would range from $995,000. So some people will get a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
But it goes up to $3,104, which is a huge increase from the $1,200 that is happening right now. So that's a big difference. And it just seems like, oh, it's just a few thousand, but that still will be passed along to the homeowner.
Yeah.
And if they do it once, what keeps them from raising those fees every year?
Well, I think at some point it can get ridiculous, right? So you have to keep an eye on it, but we do need some money coming in from somewhere to handle all of the infrastructure and all the changes that are taking place.
Yeah. So the question is, do the people that are buying new construction pay for it? Or does everybody collectively pay for it because we're all using it?
Yeah, I mean, it's.
what do y'all think?
I want to know what everybody thinks. I mean, how do you think it should be taken care of? Where do you think we should come up with the money? Do you think that this makes sense? And do you think that a flat number makes sense, a flat percentage? I think that's fair.
Of an impact fee?
Across the board.
Or across everybody in town? Yeah, well, if they put a penny tax on, then really you're taxed by however much you spend in town.
Yeah.
But then also it's recouped by a lot of the tourists that come in. So that kind of helps us as homeowners. So maybe that's the better option, because if it's only a type of fee, a type of tax, an impact fee assessed to the owners, then only the people that are living or investing in our area are affected, not the people using it and enjoying it as tourists.
Yeah.
So
and some service fees are going to go up.
So we'll see. Where do y'all think it should come from? I mean, I think it'll be a collective effort, but at least we do have a huge tourism industry here that we can kind of pull from.
Yeah,
as
I
well.
agree. And that's a good source for us to pull from. So
do you want to talk about the different projects that they are saying that they're going to be using the budget for?
Yeah, I think it's important for everybody to have an idea. And I'm sure these can vary and they can change, but let's talk about exactly where this money is going to go. So $1.02 billion budget. That's the total that they have for fiscal year 2027. It funds 49 new positions, and 38 of them are in public safety. So that brings the county workforce to 3,441. So that's interesting, I thought. All county employees get a 4% cost of living raise.
I did hear they were increasing the pay for teachers next year, so that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, the police, different services.
Absolutely.
But having more safety services.
Yeah, you've got EMS.
I think probably hiring more police and things like that. I mean, I think that is fire departments. They've built a lot of new fire departments around town as we've seen this growth.
Code issues, planning review, zoning.
Well, they're going to collect their money from those things. They're going to charge fees for that again. A lot of this goes back to from the ground up. A lot of this is being charged if you're building a new home along the way in different fees. And so that's going to increase the cost of buying a home.
Well, you said it earlier, there's no tax increase. So no tax increase, but here's what is going up. So there's no millage increase, which you talked about, but the budget does carry fee increases. It's not a tax hike in 3 areas. Like I said, EMS charges, code enforcement, planning and zoning fees, but you have to think about it you have to flag it for builders, investors, and anyone permitting new construction and development. That's us. So we're going to have to pay more. And the question is, like you said earlier, do we pass that on to people or do we eat that cost?
So let's talk about the capital projects that this has been dog-eared for. Okay. So first is they're going to fix up Little River. So the waterfront, they're investing in a beautification project in the Little River waterfront. So
and that's $3.5 million.
I mean, why should you care about that? Why should people care? I mean, I'm just saying, like, would that appeal to y'all? Like, is this something important to you if you live here, that the Little River area is beautified? I don't know if that's a word, but if you're living in the Little River, Cherry Grove, or even like northern parts of maybe Longs, then that could be a great thing because you're probably using that area more regularly.
Yeah.
Different festivals. We just had the big Blue Crab Festival. That's huge in Little River. So I'm sure when people come to our area to experience festivals like that and they see it being more beautiful, they're going to want to come back. So I think that helps us all as a whole.
I do.
So I think it is a good thing.
It is. I think there's going to be some people watching this that are like, I live in Myrtle Beach. I don't care about Little River. Why are they doing stuff in Little River?
But I know a lot of people in Myrtle Beach that take their boats out and go park at Little River and go to restaurants on the riverfront. So,
but it also, like, if people come to visit Myrtle Beach or you live in Myrtle Beach, you want people to keep visiting. Well, the more things there are to do, they'll keep coming. So if they can go to Little River and have a good time, or it's beautiful, or they have these, new things to do, then that's going to improve it for Myrtle Beach when having, people come and visit.
But not just by the coast and for tourism. A big shift we have seen over the past several years is people moving into the more rural areas that aren't so rural anymore.
Yeah.
And so the county is noticing that and actually investing in civic centers for these rural areas that did not have any place to gather, anything like that before. So they are giving these services to the people more on the outskirts and not just in the tourism. Because I think we always see all the money being spent towards the tourism areas and things like that, not maybe the places that people live all the time.
No, that makes sense. I mean, so this is interesting. So we had the 3.5 million going towards Little River, obviously stormwater projects, county road projects, but we have 6 million going to the design of the new J. Reuben Long Detention Center Tower.
So what does that mean for you? Well, that is our local jail. And so the better facilities they have, the better safety we would have, I would think.
It would definitely be under safety. I mean, I don't want to say we don't have high crime. We don't,
We can't mention crime.
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
Go
like,
look at the statistics.
I mean, yes. But the point is that every county is going to have a jail, a center where a detention center. And so obviously we want that to be state of the art.
And as an area grows, there is more opportunity for crimes to happen with more people.
Right. We have a lot of visitors, and a lot of the stuff that takes place is people coming from out of town
they don't live
that do things here that they shouldn't be doing.
But there is also the local stuff, and at least now we're prepared. So that they're putting the money into that. So I think that's good foresight instead of waiting and saying, oh, we can't handle these issues and just releasing everybody onto the streets. So.
I love this top one.
Okay, what is it?
Okay, you ready? Everybody watch the look on Tiffany's face. Let's see how surprised she is. 69.7 million new rural civic center equestrian facility. By far the biggest single line. I think that's really interesting. I think that's cool. An equestrian facility. You don't seem very excited. You don't like horses?
We were talking about the rural areas.
These are capital projects.
So yes, I'm very excited because our son, as some of y'all know, was big into horseback riding for several years. And what surprised me about the Grand Strand was that we actually have a lot of stables here and places that do offer riding lessons or boarding of your horses. And you wouldn't really picture that by the beach. But the one Hudson went to, the Hart Ranch, was actually 15 minutes from the beach. I mean, it was just barely inland. So you have these facilities around town, and obviously that is filling a need because the lessons, I mean, you could barely get in. There were so many people.
It's really cool.
They had all the horses. We even called another stable at one time to see, and they were just so busy. So I think there is a need for it.
Surprise! You wouldn't have never thought. And I think people were always shocked when we told them about it. So
well, I'm sure they put out some public feelers of what do the people in the rural areas want. And if you have something like that, you can have like a 4-H club or different get-togethers, different community events, clubs, things that bring the community together. So
I think it's great.
I think that's a cool thing.
I'm really happy about it. What do you guys think of that? What do you think about me being happy about it?
Other projects that they're putting towards?
Let's see.
Now we do have still the penny tax, which is a separate topic, but that covers road infrastructure projects around town. So that is something that we vote on pretty much every year if we're going to keep it for the next year. And each year they come up with their project list of what they're going to do with that. So that does help with growth as well. Yeah.
This happened at the same meeting. So, we read the budget so you don't have to. Council redirected $300,000 away from engineering for the Highway 90 landfill expansion and toward studies for a construction and demolition transfer station, including possible rail transport for waste, which was interesting.
It was a big deal around here because they were talking about expanding the landfill. We are having so many people in town that our landfill is close to capacity. So they were talking about just expanding it, which would affect a lot of homeowners. Because think about a landfill, like you live miles away and then they're like, oh, guess what? We're going to put it in your backyard now. How does that affect your property value?
It would have expanded 100+ acres.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people
near Sterrett Swamp.
A lot of people would have been affected by that. And so I think with the pushback, they probably decided they needed to look at other options.
Well, what they did was the new budget language orders the Solid Waste Authority to move commercial waste disposal outside the county by June 30th, 2028.
I mean, that's not even that far away.
With quarterly progress reports.
Yeah, that's not even that far away. But they're putting a lot of pressure on them to figure this out quickly.
Yeah.
Because they probably know with our rate of growth, like it can only last that long until we're out of capacity.
Absolutely. So I thought that's interesting. So that was something that was added. But separate, we have the local option sales tax referendum, which is still on the table. Should we go over that or do you want to wait?
No, I mean, I think we're there, so.
Separate from the budget, this is interesting. So separate from our budget, but the biggest potential impact on your tax bills is a proposed 1% local option sales tax. and the South Carolina Attorney General has cleared the county to put it to voters. So they'll be seeing that probably on the ballots.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people say our sales tax already is high. Now, once you get into, let's say, Myrtle Beach, they even have their own added sales tax. So you have like, you go out to eat and there's like city tax, county tax, state tax. There's like 5 lines of taxes.
I know.
And then you're like, oh my gosh.
But we did just talk about them lowering taxes here in the area. So I'm curious to see
when they're going to do
what the net effect is of some of this, because it's projected to raise $130 million a year, with 71% directed to property tax relief. So property tax relief.
Well, so Myrtle Beach already, the city limits of Myrtle Beach already does something like this, where they collect the tourism tax and they use part of that to give back to homeowners that it's their primary residence, to give them a tax break. So that sounds like the county's thinking about making that more countywide.
It sounds like that. The relief applies to primary homes, second homes, and vehicles. It extends beyond legal residence owners to second homes and investment properties, which is key for investors.
That would be crazy, because usually investors and second homeowners don't get much tax relief here. You're the ones that pay the most tax.
We appreciate you.
Even, well, us. We live here, but only our one residence are we taxed well. The other ones we pay what everybody else pays that's not here.
Yeah, exactly. And you think about it, that's roughly 350,000 homes can see a deduction of like $200 to $300 a year.
Yeah, I mean,
property tax reduction.
I mean, we'll take anything we can get, right? I mean,
65% of the tax will be paid by tourists.
Well, it'll be interesting because the next reassessment, as I mentioned, is going to be in 2029. The last one happened in 2024, but that's when prices were skyrocketing. We were still at the tail end because think about it, it didn't take a day to do the assessments. They were probably working on it for a year before that, when all the values were just skyrocketing. And all of our properties, they gave us our new assessment and it was way higher than it had been. But since then, we've evened out or even dipped a little bit in some of the segments of the market. So it'll be interesting to see in 2029 if property bills come down because of the reassessment, stay steady, or go up.
That's right. That's right. It's going to be interesting. It sounds like it's going to go on this November ballot, November 3rd, and then it would go, if it's approved, the collection would start May 1st of 2027. So council has until August 15th to approve the ordinance.
I mean, I don't particularly want any more taxes, but if we're going to pay it one way or then another, we might get it back in our property taxes. But if they add a 1% sales tax to everything we're buying around town, we're probably spending more than $200. Let's be honest.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's like, which way do you want to pay it?
Sure.
They're going to take it from you regardless. That's what it sounds like to me.
That's everywhere, right?
Like whether you build, they add it to a sales tax, they add it to your
They're going to get
tax,
their money.
They're going to get it and we're going to have to pay it. So unless they exclusively charge it to the tourist as like a hotel tax, then there's no way to keep from it impacting the homeowners that actually live here.
100%. I agree.
I
agree with you.
Okay.
All right.
So to wrap this up, let's talk about kind of how this affects the different segments of the market. I mean, what should buyers be aware of and how would this affect you?
It's a great question. So what does this mean for buyers, sellers, and investors? And I think that it is a little different, but for buyers and current owners, there's no millage increase, right? So that stays the same. It means predictable carrying costs heading into 2027. So that's a stability story, right?
Like I would say that's more for sellers or current homeowners, because a buyer could be impacted by where they purchase it
and it's higher.
But or are you going to buy new construction and then there's going to be higher fees?
But they're expecting that when they buy. The sellers don't have an increase. The buyers haven't had any tax
outside of our area would expect it. I think they need to be aware of what's going on and how that could potentially impact them when they're making a buying decision.
Well, and this is, I'm going to say it again, who you work with matters. We say this all the time. We have put together a few guides for all of you. So if you're looking for a guide, if you're a buyer and you need a buyer guide to buy a home, or if you're a seller and you need a seller guide to buy a home, we have them on our website and you can get them for free. So you just put in your information and you can download the guide. Also an investor, if you're going to invest in Myrtle Beach with real estate, there's guides on our website, which is carolinacraftedhomes.com. And if you go there, there's a guides heading and you can download the guide. But who you work with matters. And if they don't understand what we're talking about, then that's a problem for you.
And right now it's just a guesswork because we don't know. They have said, yes, this is the new budget, but we don't know how that's going to break down as far as collection.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing solid that we can give you right now, except for be prepared for something to come out and just keep your eyes open and ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
would be the main thing. And for short-term rental owners or investors
Mm-hmm.
in the area, how could this affect you? I think you'd have to be prepared for potential increase in fees,
Mm-hmm.
Because that might be a place that they do tax a little more heavily, which tends to be be the case. I feel like so.
They're also investing in areas that benefit both the buyers and sellers, right? So the
Sure.
EMS and the code enforcement and all of those, that is good for everybody.
Well, and that helps investors too, because if you want people to vacation in your property and they hear that it's a safe area to go, the riverfront is brand new and refurbished, all this stuff that is adding to the vibe and the feel is great. And that only benefits more tourism and money in investors' pockets. So
Mhm.
I think in a way, all of these services, like you said, could actually benefit an investor.
And all of this really comes down to one thing. Everybody wants to be here.
Yeah.
So all of this is happening.
Yay, we're already here.
Yeah. We're approving a budget that's largest we've ever had because we've got more people than we've ever had.
Yeah.
So it's not like a big shock. The number's a shock, but it's going to climb.
Like always a thread in every week's
it's always because the growth.
It so much relates back to growth.
We just got our big boy pants. That's what we got. So we got big boy pants now in Horry County because we're now putting up big numbers, like a big, some cities would probably laugh at us because this is small compared to them.
Mm-hmm. But for builders, remodelers, you should probably plan accordingly. For worst case scenario, they're putting out what they want to do, which means they probably will do it. So I think budgeting ahead and setting those expectations and not being caught off guard, staying active, going to the public hearing meetings and all of that, voicing your opinion, standing up for buyers and keeping the costs lower for them, I think is important for builders right now to do.
I did some extra digging and I was just trying to see Horry County, because it's such a large number, you'd have to ask yourself, I think it's important to ask ourselves, are we being fiscally responsible as a county? And I don't know how many of you know this, but Horry County holds AA+ ratings from S&P and Fitch and A1 from Moody's. And we have deep reserves. The bottom line is we have strong management, but spending is climbing because of the growth. And so the general fund balance was about $135 million as of mid 2023, which is 53% of next year's budget. So well above the county's own policy. So we're doing good. Doesn't mean things can't improve, but.
Well, if you're living or traveling or vacationing here, what is the main growth problem that you want the county to focus on first? Is it traffic? Is it amenities? Is it revitalization, security? What is the one thing that you would say that the county should be spending their time and money focusing on improving?
Well, to add to that, here's another piece that we say almost every week, which is that, we have the lowest average effective property tax in South Carolina. And South Carolina's rate is roughly half the national average. So primary residents are assessed at 4% versus 6% for second homes and commercial. So when it comes to, you compare it to everything else, we're in great shape.
I love it. That's why people are moving here.
Yeah. So
All right,
as we grow,
so-
we're going to have challenges.
Well, if you want to add to the growth and move into our area, feel free to give us a call. We'd love to give you advice or represent you on buying your property here or investing in our area. It's great. Make sure to check out our YouTube channel. We have tons and tons of information, whether you're buying, selling, want to see property tours. If you want to invest on the oceanfront, we have a whole series on that. So make sure to check that out as well.
Yeah,
and we'll
lots
see
of
you on the next one next week.
Yeah, lots of content. And next week we talk about money that was spent on beautification. So that should be interesting.
Great.
Yeah, awesome. All right, everybody. Till next Thursday. We'll see you then. If you have any questions, reach out or put them in the comments. See you guys next time.